Have you ever heard of Fire and Ice? It's a wild, cult classic fantasy adventure flick from 1983, and trust me, it's unlike anything else. Basically, this movie is what happens when two legends, animator Ralph Bakshi, yeah, the guy who did Fritz the Cat and that trippy Lord of the Rings cartoon, and Frank Frazetta, the painter who basically is Conan the Barbarian, team up to make the most epic fantasy movie they could dream up. You get Bakshi's funky rotoscope animation mashed up with Frazetta's totally over-the-top, muscle-bound fantasy world. The result? An animated movie that seriously looks like a Frazetta painting come to life. So, what's it about? Set in a prehistoric fantasy world where magic and muscle rule, Fire and Ice tells the story of two kingdoms at war. Firekeep, ruled by the peaceful King Jarl and his daughter, Princess Teegra. Ice Peak, ruled by the evil sorceress Juliana and her son Nekron, who commands a massive glacier that advances southward, crushing everything beneath it. When Teegra is kidnapped by Nekron's subhuman minions, a young warrior named Larn, whose village has been destroyed by the encroaching ice, sets out to rescue her. Along the way, he joins forces with Darkwolf, a mysterious animal-skinned warrior who becomes the story's mythic hero figure, a sort of barbarian spirit of resistance. The film culminates in a fiery showdown between the forces of good and evil, Fire and Ice, literally, with Darkwolf confronting Nekron in a final, primal battle. Here's the thing. The animation was done with rotoscoping. That's where they actually film real actors in costume, then trace over every frame to make the cartoon move like real people. Bakshi used this before, but in Fire and Ice it looks especially cool, especially with Frazetta's art as the background. They even shot the live-action stuff in Mexico with pro stunt folks. So you've got these super detailed, crazy real movements, all set in a painted, savage world that just oozes Frazetta's style. The idea came from Bakshi, who was a huge Frazetta fan. He pitched teaming up for an animated flick that would basically bring Frazetta's fantasy paintings to life. Frazetta was all in, helping design the characters and storyboards and making sure every smoky jungle or ripped hero looked just right. Plus, with Marvel alumni Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway writing the script, you know it's going to have that classic swords and sorcery vibe. Honestly, Fire and Ice is more about vibe than deep plot. It's primal good versus evil, heroes fighting monsters, and lots of flexed muscles everywhere. The big themes are all about survival, power, and the wildness of nature, just like in Frazetta's art. It's violent, sensual, and definitely more watch the action than follow the dialogue. Basically, it's pure pulpy high fantasy. Back in '83, it didn't do great at the box office and critics were split. Some people thought it was beautiful, like an animated Frazetta painting, while others said it was kind of simple plot-wise. But over the years, fans of fantasy art, animators, and '80s movie buffs have fallen in love with it. These days, people talk about it as a visual masterpiece, a bridge between Conan and the heavy metal movie scene, and a key piece of fantasy animation history. You can see echoes of Fire and Ice in everything from Conan and Beastmaster to modern video games like Diablo and Dark Souls. Fun fact, director Robert Rodriguez is such a big Frazetta fan, he actually bought Frazetta's art estate and has been teasing a live-action remake for years. As of 2025, it's still in the works, but fans are keeping the torch burning. Fire and Ice still pops up at animation festivals and retrospectives, where people go wild for its art and ambition. Home media? Oh yeah, it's out there. You can track it down on VHS and Laserdisc if you're old school, but there are DVD, Blu-ray, and even a super shiny 4K version now, so you can really soak in the details. Even with its super simple story, Fire and Ice is unforgettable. A living fantasy painting, a showcase for jaw-dropping hand-drawn animation, and a love letter to Frazetta's imagination. Want to lose yourself in swords, sorcery, and some seriously wild 80s fantasy art? Give Fire and Ice a watch. Love this kind of retro fantasy stuff? Subscribe to Movies of the 80s for more blasts from the past.